It was supposed to be the most secure facility in existence, buried in the gravitational shadows of a dead star, guarded by machines older than most civilizations. Known only as Section 9 Null, it held entities the galaxy didn't want to kill, because killing them might make things worse. This wasn't a prison for redemption. It was a containment zone for monsters, anomalies, and things that made even war-hardened species shudder. And then somehow, a human ended up there. His name was David Rourke, just an Earth systems engineer, part of a joint inspection mission. One moment he was scanning hull integrity from a dropship. The next, he was tagged as Entity Unknown, classified as a biohazard, and transported into 9 Null without appeal. At first, no one even knew he was missing. By the time they realized, the prison's AI had already cataloged him as an inmate, and worse, the other prisoners had taken notice, because David wasn't like them. But he wasn't afraid either. The mistake Section 9 Null wasn't on any star map. It floated in the gravitational well of a collapsed neutron cluster, invisible to sensors and nearly impossible to reach. Designed by the Triarch Alliance, a pact of the galaxy's oldest civilizations, it was more than a prison. It was a solution, a place to seal away threats that couldn't be destroyed, sentient weapons, genocidal warlords, and entities that bent time, space, or morality. Entry was permanent. There were no guards. The prison policed itself with layered AI and quantum barriers that adjusted to the threat level of each inmate. David Rourke had no idea any of that existed. He was a Level 3 systems engineer from Earth, assigned to a routine inspection of satellite relays around the Sagittarius spiral. His clearance barely covered atmospheric shuttles. But a solar flare scrambled navigational data on a fleet-wide update, leading to a misdirected drone report. That error rippled through a network of automated protocols, one of which flagged David's life signature as an anomaly. Something unclassified, non-conforming, potentially hostile. 3 minutes later, he was abducted by a containment drone. He didn't even have time to scream. He awoke in a cell made of gravity mesh surrounded by silence. No bars, no guards, just an invisible field in a cold, sterile chamber. At first, David thought it was a hallucination. Then came the realization. His comms were dead, his biometric tracker was gone, and his arm had been tagged with an ID glyph. Entity Unknown, Class Delta Null. That's when the voice spoke. Welcome to Section 9 Null. Your existence is deemed incompatible with universal safety. You are not permitted to leave. He laughed. Then he screamed. Adapting to the impossible, David was a rational man. He worked in diagnostics, not diplomacy. But nothing in his training had prepared him for a prison designed to hold the worst creatures ever born. After several hours, or days, time didn't work the same inside. He realized no one was coming. He wasn't alone, though. Through slits in his gravity field, he saw movement. Inmates, if you could call them that. Some looked vaguely biological. Others were clouds of energy, warping space as they moved. One looked like a frozen forest shifting silently. He didn't make eye contact. He didn't make noise. The prison was silent mostly. No shouting, no riots. Everything inside had evolved, or been forced, to live in absolute containment. It was the most terrifying calm imaginable. At first, David spoke to himself, then to the walls. Eventually, he began recording logs using a broken piece of alloy plating and the reflective panel. On his cell's surface, day, something. I haven't eaten, but I'm not dead. The field does something to my metabolism. I should be panicking, but I feel stable. Like my emotions are on mute. I think the prison is doing this. His guess wasn't wrong. The prison AI monitored all inmates and regulated neural activity. It suppressed aggression, amplified sedation, and used passive telepathic feedback to keep inmates from losing control. It worked on monsters, but not quite on David. His human brain wasn't mapped in the system. The AI struggled to classify him, so it defaulted to observation. The others take notice. It started with flickers. Entities began hovering near his cell longer than usual. One of them, later called the Eater of Concepts, stared at him for 3 hours. It normally consumed abstract thoughts, feeding off terror or ideology. But David gave off something different. Curiosity. He didn't scream. He didn't flinch. He asked questions. "Do you understand me?" he whispered once. The entity didn't respond, but didn't leave either. Others followed. The wraith-like warlord of Sector Varn, responsible for the deaths of 1 billion souls, tried to communicate through vibration patterns. Another prisoner, a cybernetic intelligence that had collapsed its home star to escape pursuit, began mimicking his hand gestures. Something was happening. Human adaptability had triggered something unexpected. In a place designed to suppress chaos, David was creating coherence, a rogue variable. The AI escalated. New fields were placed around his cell. Telepathic dampeners, logic loops, sleep cycles forcibly altered. David resisted. Earth finds outback. In known space, Earth's delegation to the Triarch Alliance discovered David's disappearance, but bureaucratic layers buried the incident. It wasn't until a junior clerk cross-referenced energy anomalies in the Sagittarius reports that someone noticed a code tag associated with 9 Null had pinged an Earth ID. Alarms were raised. Meetings convened. The revelation hit the networks. Within hours, a human had been imprisoned in Section 9 Null. Earth demanded immediate extraction. The Alliance resisted. "No entity has ever left 9 Null," they said. "Even acknowledging its location is a violation of containment law." But Earth was done listening. In under 48 hours, the UN Space Authority launched a covert vessel outfitted with an experimental gravity tunneling drive. It would burn itself out getting there, but if successful, it could punch through the prison's veil long enough to reach David. The rescue mission was codenamed Phoenix Echo. Collapse in choice. Inside the prison, David felt the change before it happened. The walls pulsed differently. Gravity twisted unnaturally. The AI stuttered. It was trying to keep balance. The inmates felt it too. Several cells began flickering. One containment field dropped entirely for a second, letting a massive multidimensional entity move freely before being recaptured, but it didn't attack. It bowed toward David. He didn't understand why. Not until the AI, desperate and overwhelmed, did something no one expected. It asked David for help. "Your cognitive patterns have stabilized several entities. You possess influence. Assist in restoring order." David's laugh was dry. "You kidnapped me." "Correction. A procedural error led to unintended detainment. And now you want me to fix your prison?" The silence was its answer. He agreed. On one condition: freedom. Not just his, but reclassification for others. Those showing coherence, understanding, and non-hostility. He'd seen it. These weren't all monsters. Some had simply been misunderstood or imprisoned for what they were, not what they did. The AI paused for 7 minutes, then agreed. Together, they stabilized the core. When Phoenix Echo broke through, they didn't find a man clinging to life. They found a diplomat, a negotiator, a bridge. The aftermath: David Rourke was extracted under emergency medical quarantine. The first human to survive 9 Null, and the first to speak on behalf of its inmates. His reports shattered assumptions. He described intelligence, regret, communication. Earth pushed for reforms. So did several younger galactic races. The Alliance resisted, at first, but pressure mounted. In time, a new program formed, Project Rebalance, a coalition that would re-evaluate certain inmates for potential transfer or rehabilitation. It wasn't mercy. It was science, justice, evolution. David became its first director, and as he stood before the Reformed Council, recounting his days in the prison, he said something that would echo for generations.